So today, the couple of passages that we read, one from Surat Ibrahim, probably a passage that is probably being recited all throughout the Masjid. That topic connects back to everything that we've studied thus far, almost everything that we've studied thus far. So today is the topic of Thanksgiving, right? Shukr. What we've read before, for example, in Surah Al-Balad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, and we guided him on two paths. And what were those paths? And then we learned in, for example, Surah al-Insan that we studied a few nights back, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ, that one, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلِ. So what are those two paths in Surah Al-Balad? We learned in Surah Al-Insan, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلِ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. That we guided him on the two paths to do what? Whether he is thankful, grateful, or whether he is ungrateful. And then we learned in Surah Al-Kafirun, obviously the word kafirun, which we didn't really talk about too much. We think of it as its disbelievers, but kufr has many, many dimensions. The couple of dimensions, we briefly, one is obviously disbelief, but disbelief is a sub-dimension of a bigger dimension, of a enveloping, overarching dimension, which is being ungrateful, ungratefulness. When you're ungrateful to something, you will reject something. When you don't care about something, when you are heedless about something, is when you would reject something. So disbelief actually, you could say, falls under ungratefulness. Kufr is the opposite of shukr. So the opposite of shukr is kufr. If you are not grateful, you are actually a kafir. Okay. Then the first passage that we read today in from Surat Ibrahim, the very, very famous ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِسْتَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ, and when your Lord proclaimed, announced to the whole world, here in this case specifically it was to the Bani Israel, it's part of the story of Musa alayhi salam, but it's really to the whole world in this ayah, وَإِسْتَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you are grateful and thankful, I will give you increase. Increase in what? Increase in everything. It is increase. It is a flat increase. It's a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, then I will give you increase. So increase in what scholars say, that if you feel that your wealth is decreasing, increase your shukr. Increase your shukr. And then the second part of the ayah, وَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ. Here, this is not disbelief. What is it? It's being ungrateful. وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ, and if you are ungrateful, know that إِنَّ عَذَابِ لَشَدِيدٌ, my punishment is severe. Meaning, my punishment in this dunya and the akhirah. You remember in Surah Al-Qalam, I'm connecting everything that we've studied thus far, inshallah, just to kind of build this web of knowledge, which is the Quran, subhanAllah. It's beautiful. Remember the people that had the garden and they wanted the masakin and the needy people out of the garden. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when their garden was taken away from them, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? وَكَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابِ, and this is what punishment is, meaning the punishment in this dunya. وَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ, and the punishment of the hereafter is more severe, is much more severe. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is ungratefulness that brings the anger of God upon us. It is what brings the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today, in the topic of shukr, let's talk about a story that is not much talked about at all, but there's a whole surah named after it. It is Surat Saba. Surat Saba. Have you guys ever heard of Queen of Sheba? Saba and Sheba is the same. So there was a queen from Sheba that's related to the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Okay. Before that, maybe, wallahu alam, we're not exactly sure when the story occurred, but it clearly happened in ancient times. Very, very, very long ago. What is the story? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لِسَبَإٍ فِي مَسْكَنِهِمْ آيَةٌ, that for the people of Saba, for Sheba, the people of Sheba, and where was it exactly? It is understood that it was in Yemen somewhere. Okay? Wallahu alam where exactly it was. It was southern Arabia, wallahu There's a whole archaeological type of studies that can be done, which is very, very interesting from the Quran. Maybe it was Yemen, maybe it was further north, Wallah. So in Saba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there was a sign for the people in their homes, in their where they lived. Jannatani an yamini wa shimal. They had gardens, and Jannatan here maybe means 2 gardens or maybe means a lot of gardens, okay? Just like in Surat Al-Rahman, we say, وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat Al-Rahman, for example, just a slight tangent, just so you know, whenever you hear, whenever you read Surat Al-Rahman, when you come across the phrase Jannatan, that typically in Arabic grammar means 2 Jannahs, but it also means many, many Jannahs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat Al-Rahman describes the levels of the Jannah. So there are levels of the Jannah that are higher, and there are levels of the Jannah that are lower. And Surat Al-Rahman is pretty much all about the description of the 2 levels of Jannah. The 2 higher VIP type of, the VIP Jannah and the non-VIP Jannah, right? Okay, so back to Surat Saba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Jannatani an yamini wa an shimal. They had gardens, these people of Saba, people of Sheba, they had gardens as in groves of fruits and amazing things and trees and beautiful, peaceful atmosphere everywhere around them on their right and on their left, meaning everywhere around them. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what? It was essentially a garden, a Jannah on earth. It was, the way it's described in the Quran, you'll see it was Jannah on earth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِ رَبِّكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لَهُ. Eat from the fruits of the provisions and the rizq of your Lord, but show thanks to Him. Be grateful to Him. Show your gratitude to Him. بَلْدَةً طَيِّبَةً. It was a tayyib is such a deep word, I don't know how to translate it. Pure land, no, that doesn't really do justice. Tayyib just means everything that's good, that smells good, that tastes good, that looks good, that is good, just everything that's good. It was that kind of a town. وَرَبٌّ غَفُورٌ, and your Lord is forgiving. Meaning, you can go all out. You can eat as much as possibly. Wallahu a'lam, exactly the extent of this meaning. But we can understand from this context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, you can go eat as much as you want. Okay? And you can enjoy as much as you want, and your Allah is forgiving. And your Allah is forgiving. But what was the condition? Show gratefulness, show thankfulness. Okay. We understand here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not talking about whether they were idol worshippers or not believers in God. We don't see anywhere that this was mentioned. However, so you can understand they were probably monotheists, they believed in Allah, maybe, Allah, we don't know. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted what from them? Sugar. To wrap up quickly, inshallah, they not only had these beautiful groves around them, they were so vast that there were cities that were surrounding Saba. Okay? Maybe much at longer distances, maybe at closer distances. And they could travel between these cities in safety and security. So I'm just summarizing for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they could travel and they would find safety, security, they could find pit stops where they could stop. They could travel between the cities, trade, whatever they wanted to trade. They had everything. You know how we go on these interstates and we have the pit stops and we can go between cities, and if we're tired, we can find rest in a hotel or a motel or whatever. Like that. Just relate all of these things back to us and how we live. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, enjoy. Enjoy, and this is what you want. What happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَعْرَضُوا. They became heedless of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even prophets, the scholars say 13 prophets were sent to Saba. 13. All they were telling them, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't forget, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The scholars also say that there were so many fruits in those gardens that they would take, a lady would take a basket and she would just walk through the gardens and fruits will just fall in the basket. And she wouldn't even have to go and reach for the fruits. And then she will walk out of the garden and her basket would be full of fruits. That's how many fruits there were. That's how amazing it was. At long time ago, ancient times. فَأَعْرَضُوا. But they became heedless. They turned away from the shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, they said, فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا بَاعِدْ بَيْنَ أَسْفَارِنَا. Two ways to understand it. I'm going to use just one way, inshallah ta'ala. There's multiple ways to understand it. They made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a different reading of this ayah. They said, oh Allah, these distances are too long between the cities. They're too long. You know, they didn't realize that it was so easy for them to travel. They could just travel, find a pit stop, eat from the fruits or whatever, the gardens or the groves that they had. And when they had to travel there, they started to complain, oh Allah, this is too long for us. This is too long for us, we can't handle it. They started to complain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of their ungratefulness, there was a dam that was giving them all of this provisions. They had built a dam on the river. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dam broke and their gardens got destroyed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed all their gardens. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there are two gardens, or you can say two gardens or many gardens. They got replaced with different kind of gardens. The one that had bitter fruit and the kind of trees and the shrubs that you do not want. And the shrubs were far apart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away all of their blessings because of their ungratefulness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the promise that shaitan made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became true. What was the promise that shaitan made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, وَلَا تَجِدُوا أَكْثَرُهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. Shaitan knew exactly what's important. He says, I will stand in the straight path, Surat al-Mustaqim. I will stand on the straight path, and I will come to them from the right, and from the left, and from above them, and below them, in front and back. I will attack your servants, O Allah, because you kicked me out, and you deceived me, you tricked me. Because that's what shaitan said. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to do sajda, he didn't want to do sajda, right? He's like, I'm better than him. Then he felt like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tricked him. So he's like, because you tricked lima aghwaytani, because you tricked me, I'm going to attack them from every single side, and you will not find a single one of your servants grateful to you. Shaitan knew the main purpose of the servants of Allah. It is what? To show gratefulness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just had told him, if you do this and those who follow you, I will fill Jahannam with them. So even shaitan knew what is important. It is shukr. It is thankfulness and gratefulness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ja'alna min al-shakirin. Allahumma ja'alna min al-tawwabin. Allahumma ja'alna min al-mustaghfirin. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.